Welcome back in another episode of this weekly AI race news that we are seeing on X and that we are seeing on YouTube. So a lot of different news this week as well about the AI giants with Microsoft, Google, Amazon, but we have a new big player this week, which is Oracle. So I'm a photographer and in this episode we are going to actually deep dive into a few news about the AI race and what's going on with all these players. So let's get started. So yes, the big news actually of the week was the earnings from Oracle and where they shocked the world with their new basically RPO. At the time of the earnings, a lot of people didn't know who was actually the big customers behind that, but we learned just afterward that it was actually a big deal with OpenAI of a $300 billion deal between OpenAI and Oracle to actually build data centers specifically for OpenAI. But actually, this actually launched the stock, or launched Oracle stock actually into the stratosphere. The stock actually took more than 40% in just one day. And actually, a lot of people realized that Oracle was actually now a big player in terms of AI. Well, the thing is that Oracle is actually a great company. Obviously, it has always been. And it has been actually a good player, I think, in terms of cloud. But this news is actually a bit leery, and it has a lot of vibes from the internet bubble of 2000. And the fact that OpenAI is actually committing $300 billion in the next few years towards building a CapEx with Oracle. We have also seen that with the Stargate project, but actually the thing is that there are a lot of these numbers which are thrown around, but the reality is that OpenAI doesn't have 300 billion. So what are they going to do? So they're going to actually turn towards a lot of investors, especially lenders, to actually finance this type of project for them. But it's kind of like a bit weird that OpenAI can do these commitments with money that first they haven't secured themselves and that they just don't have on their balance sheet. And Oracle actually is benefiting a lot from money that actually hasn't come yet at all, and that may also never come. So what does it mean for their shareholders? So what we are seeing is that today, like Larry Ellison has become the most or the richest person in the world thanks to this news, but the reality is that it is based on kind of thin hair, and like there's not really a lot behind it. I think it has a lot of Masayoshi Son vibe as well from SoftBank, a lot of promises, but the reality behind this is much different. We have seen that last week with the $600 billion thrown around by Mark Zuckerberg. Today we are seeing that with the $300 billion thrown around by Sam Altman with Oracle. I think that basically like this figure doesn't make sense anymore. So there is not enough capacity to build all of that. And who is benefiting from that? Well, basically Oracle and NVIDIA. But the reality behind that is that, well, most likely this capacity, they are not going to be built. And what we are seeing as well is that a lot of the industry is relying on OpenAI, basically burning a lot of cash and a lot of money, making a lot of promises. So OpenAI today is actually supporting NVIDIA, it's supporting Microsoft, and now it's supporting Oracle. So which is actually a bit weird, to be honest. I think that when people are going to realize that actually OpenAI is not going to make a lot of money going forward because their business does not make sense with all the investment in terms of CapEx, that they're going to be a bit scared. And what we are seeing as well is that the Max 7, so the Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google in the world, now they are focusing on efficiency. They're not spending like all of this amount recklessly anymore. They are trying to become more efficient. They are going to try to bring a lot of things in-house. And what we are going to see is that for players like OpenAI and NVIDIA, there is going to be a turn or a defining moment where they are going to realize that all these big customers, they are going to evaporate, at least partially. And this is going to actually dry up the growth for these players. And I think that OpenAI is going to be one of the first in line. And what we have seen recently that they had a lot of difficulties to actually get a lot of funding, especially for their next round of funding. And they are trying to pull all of the strings to actually keep their valuation today. So be careful investing in Oracle today. The news was actually great, a bit surprising to be honest, but when it's too good to be true, sometimes it is, and you have to be reasonable. Do not chase Oracle, definitely. And I think that we're going to see in other news that there are other players in the industry which are much sounder. So in other news in the AI race this week, so we have seen Thomas Kurian, the CEO of Google Cloud, being on the Goldman Sachs Technology Conference, and he actually shared a lot of nuggets of information about Google Cloud and how Google actually plans to dominate the AI cloud. And the first thing that we have learned is that Google has a lot of backlog as well. So it mentioned that there is a $106 billion backlog for Google Cloud, and that they expect to get $58 billion in terms of revenue by 2027. So from the existing customers, there's already a lot of backlog and a lot of demand for Google Cloud services. And this is going to translate into very strong growth for Google Cloud. And I think a lot of people that continue, they are going to be surprised by the demand that we are seeing with Google Cloud, especially that Google is actually dominating a lot of areas in terms of AI. And this brings us to the second point and the second nugget of information that Thomas Kurian, which is actually a great CEO, that is providing during this Goldman Sachs conference. Basically, like he's saying that Google is the only player to have the full stack AI for their customers. This is what we have said many times on this channel. So Google has its own system, its own data, its own hardware, and what they're providing to their customers basically is actually everything in terms of AI coming from Google. And what he's mentioning is that other players, basically, they are reselling stuff from other companies, but Google is having something different. They have all integrated into their own system and their own platform. So they can provide Gemini, they can provide TPUs, they can provide all the service of Google Cloud, and all of this is based on Google innovation. And this is where it's actually a great competitive advantage for Google. And I think that we are going to see that play out. I think Google is going to continue to grow very fast. It's going to demonstrate the world that in terms of AI cloud, so especially focus on AI workloads, Google is actually the #1 player in the industry. We have said that many times. Thomas Kurian is actually supporting this idea as well. And in the next few years, I think that it is going to become and it's going to turn into fruition, definitely. Another news that came up also early in the week, which was actually the announcement that Baidu and Alibaba have developed their own AI chips, which are actually better, at least for Alibaba, better than the H20 from NVIDIA. So what does it mean? It means that, as we have said before and in the previous episode, is that Chinese companies, they are going to do everything they can to remove the reliance on NVIDIA chips. So we are seeing that Alibaba, Baidu, they are developing their own AI chips. DeepSeek is going to use the Huawei chips. And so what we are going to see is that all these big AI Chinese players, they are going to use Chinese chips. This is going to happen, definitely, mark my words. Like there will be no NVIDIA chips in China in the next few years. And this is going to continue. And I think that the problem is that because like the United States and NVIDIA don't want to actually sell their best chips, so basically Blackwell chips, to China, what China is going to do, they're going to build like better chips than the H20 or what NVIDIA is currently shipping to China, and they're going to replace the whole stack. And it's going to be very hard for NVIDIA to actually come back into this market. I think that this is never going to happen. Definitely China has done everything that they can to remove this reliance on NVIDIA, but especially on US products, because what we have seen is that all this control export and all these sanctions, this is basically like a national security threat for China. And we are going to see Alibaba, we're going to see DeepSeek, and we're going to see Baidu definitely continue to innovate in terms of chips. And as well, what we have seen with American players is that these companies like Google, these companies like Amazon, who have developed their own specific chips, they may not have chips that are better than NVIDIA by themselves, but by being specialized for the workloads and the system and operating environment of the companies, they are going to be as good for these companies. So basically, the AI chips for Alibaba is going to be custom made for Alibaba workloads and Alibaba environment. And this is why it's going to be so great for Alibaba, because it's going to be effective and it's going to be efficient. And I think that's what Chinese companies have always been great at. And we are going to see in the next few years that with these AI chips from Alibaba, Alibaba is going to become much more profitable in terms of AI going forward, in the same way Google and Amazon are going to be as well. So definitely, let's keep an eye on that, but definitely Chinese players are going to use AI chips from China. This is no surprise, but that's the reality. I think the Chinese market for NVIDIA is going to close very quickly. Another news this week is actually the partnership between Microsoft and Anthropic. So actually it came as a surprise, the fact that Microsoft is now tapping Anthropic to actually power its Microsoft Office 365 with clone models. It's actually very interesting because it shows that Microsoft is actually pushing to try to diversify their offering in terms of models and try to reduce their reliance or over-reliance on OpenAI. So very interesting news. In other interesting news and rumors that we have seen as well with Microsoft is that Microsoft is also trying to develop their own AI chips. So we have seen last week as well that Amazon and Google, obviously, they are building their own custom chips. We have seen also Meta, we have seen OpenAI, xAI building their own custom chips as well. A lot of people are doing that. But here, what's very interesting is that Microsoft is trying to build their own AI chip, but they're also trying to catch up in terms of models. I really think that Microsoft definitely wants to get out of the reliance over OpenAI, and they are going to try to build their own models. I think that this is a bit of a turning point for Microsoft because Microsoft has been exceptionally good in terms of distribution, but not always good in terms of performance of their models or performance, I think, in terms of products. So I think that a lot of people will agree that Microsoft products are not always the best on the market. Where Microsoft actually excels is that distribution and packaging. And so we will see that if Microsoft can actually catch up in terms of models by themselves, I think like the odds are against Microsoft today because we have seen such advancement from OpenAI and especially from Google and from Anthropic that it's going to be very difficult for Microsoft to actually come back with their own models that are going to actually catch up with these good models. But what we are going to see most likely is that Microsoft is going to come with a good enough model that they're going to put into Copilot and push that to everyone. And they're going to basically continue to dominate like the enterprise field with that. And they're going to remove the reliance on OpenAI. I think that every move that we are seeing from Microsoft today is seeing that Microsoft is trying everything that they can to actually cut off Sam Altman and OpenAI from basically Microsoft. I think that Satya Nadella has actually had enough of all the BS from Sam Altman, and the fact that actually Sam Altman is actually trying to compete with Microsoft. So this partnership is very weird. We have seen this week that they have signed a new memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding between OpenAI and Microsoft for the next phase of their partnership. We will see what's going to happen, but definitely I think that there is a lot of tensions between the two organizations at the moment. So that's all the news that we have for this week. So if you're interested in all the news, the analysis about stocks that we have, so please check my other videos on this channel. And tell me also like if you have seen anything interesting in the AI race into the comments. Or please subscribe, and if you're interested in other videos, I see you in another one. Bye!